I'm really excited to welcome our next two guests. We have a living legend who documents an iconic sports franchise paired with a hot up-and-comer who's documenting a sports startup. It's a session of extremes, but they have a shared passion for capturing the images that take over our social feeds and build a lifetime of fan engagement. I had a chance to see their sneak preview and excited for you all see what they're doing and how they're making those images that keep us coming back for more. Our first speaker is Tyrell Lloyd, the Director of Photography Services and lead team photographer at the San Francisco 49ers. He will be followed by Rankin White, team photographer for the brand new Austin FC. After they both present, we'll open up to questions and conversation, and I'm not going to waste any more of your precious time, but don't forget to post questions that you may have in Slack. And now, Tyrell, please take it away.
I want to thank PhotoShelter, Rachel, and you guys for having me again. I know I did this a year ago when I was sitting at home during the pandemic, and PhotoShelter has been a great partner to me and the 49ers here, and even with pushing content out like how we've been doing it for years and stuff like that. And then, listening to Jess and looking on how they push out images in real time and so on and so forth. And I've been a proponent of wireless since we were back in Candlestick days. And when Canon came out with these wireless transmitters, I've been a proponent of, technology. And so, I had a vision when we were in Candlestick before we got here to Levi Stadium. It's like, how can I push images out? And we were like, I think one of the first teams in the NFL really to get stuff out in real time. So let's go over a little bit of my history with the team. I've been with the 49ers for about almost 24, 25 years here now. And I've been full-time with them for about 8 years now. And I started off as a contractor with the 49ers and then really turned it into a full-time position. And I forgot to add this in, and I'm also the athletic photographer for San Jose State University. And I've been covering and shooting their program, all their team pictures, headshots, cover all of their sports, but not every game. We will cover all of football. And you may say, how do you do all of football? And then you're doing college and you're doing the 49ers. I have a full-time staff person here. Her name is Meg. She's our manager of editing and assets and also a team photographer here. And I have a full-time contractor, Kim, that's been with me from our Candlestick days for about 15 years now. So that's a little bit background on me. For some of you who don't know, my presentation can go for about an hour, but I know I only got 10 minutes, but I'll try to make up that time a little bit. But here's some of the things I'm going to cover that really, within the last 15 months during the pandemic and, COVID-19, and how we had to really pivot during the year, how PhotoShelter from our partnership for years has really played a key on how we were going to push assets out to our marketing team, our partnership team, to our social team, to our web team, design team. Everybody was working from home, and it's like, how are they going to get images when they, couldn't have access to our servers in the offices as remotely. Talk a little bit about remote access. I mentioned about our social team restrictions that we had during the COVID time. And then we also had to become pool photographers for the media outlets that couldn't come in once we, was ramping up for the season in 2020. And game day coverage. One of the things I'm gonna show here, and I got some visuals to show you on that one, how we covered game days, where access was limited, and my team, we couldn't have a lot of numbers on the field and things like that. And how are we still gonna push it out like how if we were on the field? And then, during the season, we still had to, obligations for marketing and partnerships, and how we're going to push that content out to them. And then we had to relocate, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Well, when we were sitting at home during the pandemic, and we were working from home, having Zoom meetings, talking about the upcoming season. One of my first shoots that I did during the pandemic at the stay at home in California and around the country, a lot of cities and companies and stadiums and areas, they wanted to light up their buildings blue to thank the healthcare workers for all the work they were doing. And so I got a call and said, hey, Tyrell, we're going to do our Levi Stadium. We're going to light it up blue. We want to get some pictures. And I was, I was happy to get out the house, pick up the camera, and this is one of the images that we pushed out to the social team, via PhotoShelter, to get it out in real time and so on and so forth. And as you could tell, all the lights are off in the stadium. So I walked this whole stadium with different angles. We posted on our social channels, and I just wanted to share this one here because I was so excited just to get back out and start shooting again. And it's funny because you're walking around in the stadium with all the lights off. You got to remember where you're going and stuff like that. But let's go, imagine this, in 2019, 2020, we made a run at the Super Bowl, everything was great. Yeah, the virus was starting to pick up a little bit, but we didn't know a lot about it and so on and so forth. And then, and how's the season going to go? Or we're going to have a season, right? Next thing you know, we're reporting back in July, and we're doing mask wearing, and players are reporting, and you got signs up, and there's restrictions going on, and then you have to test, every day, right? We had to test every day. Even myself, I was being tested every day from July until January, till the end of the season, and people said, "Wow." I mean, it was like, it was one of those sacrifices you had to take in order to get the job done, and then to be safe as well. When you look at it, and this image here is a lot of my assistants and photographers that helped out in the NFC Championship game right before we went to the Super Bowl. So, imagine this, you got a team here. Now I wasn't able to take this whole team to the Super Bowl, but they helped out. We were covering a lot, we're celebrating. And then the next thing you're trying to figure out if you're going to have a season, and then all the restrictions come in, and then you're back at the facilities in July, and you're mask wearing, not a lot of access. And then, in August, September, you're on the field and there's no photographers on the field, right? And so and there's no fans in the stands, and it's like, how are you going to, how are you going to work? How are you going to get your job done? Where are the photographers going to be in the stands when I talk about like coverages, right? But at the facility, there were strict rules that we had to abide by, right? Wear your mask, social distancing, make sure you got the hand sanitizers, 6 feet back away from each other. In our meal room, we couldn't congregate in the meal room. So, you had to stand in line, separation, you're behind plexiglass, they're the chefs, and they're preparing the meals for you, and you had to go, really eat alone, basically. But now, you look at, like, when I talk about pivoting for my crew, the NFL set up what they called a ozone layer around the bowls, where limited number of photographers, outside photographer, Getty, AP, team photographers, media, so on and so forth. You had to shoot from around the stands in the bowl area, right? So how are we going to cover a game with my photo crew, and you only really have one person on the field? And it's a matter of like strategy on moving in certain positions, where if you were downfield level, still trying to cover a game, but basically from an upper level. And that's the way I had to approach it. But then you look at it, if you look at, like, when I was talking about obligations for partnerships, right? You see all the stadiums, NBA did it, Major League Baseball did it, NFL, where you had partnership obligations for their branding, right? And then this is where PhotoShelter came into play. It's like we had to push that branding out to, like, our social teams. And then how are we going to, from the marketing and partnership standpoint, we utilize PhotoShelter to the utmost degree to do that as well. So in our relationship with PhotoShelter, and like say, when I was pushing stuff out in real time, it was like, an FTP in there. It was very, critical for me when we built the stadium in 2014. And then, as I was talking about becoming pool photographers, so we really had to pivot and then change up a lot of things, like, how are we going to get images out quickly to outlets and even internal partners too as well. So that's where, like I say, I mean, I've been knowing Andrew for years. I remember when he started PhotoShelter, and I couldn't wait to get on the PhotoShelter when we got here to Levi's and stuff like that. And it's helped us out really tremendously as well. But when you look at from, a design, a social, web team, this is how we were still able to push content out during the game. So I just wanted to give you a visual from our graphics team of what they put together. And we're transmitting wirelessly from the field, from in the stands, from different angles, as I talked about it, because I have a strategy on how I shoot. So, it's like one of those things we could probably do a session for an hour or 2 hours on my thought process, how we cover a game as a team, as a crew of photographers, and from how are we getting content to our designers to post all these graphics and everything like that, right? So I wanted to give you a feel for what our design team is doing and how they'll take a series of image and create a graphic, and we'll post that as well. Like when I saw Jess's presentation too, there was no fans in the stands, everybody had cutouts, right? So I thought about it, and I worked with our partnerships and marketing to like, okay, what can we do to help out our partners, by images that we are capturing. So we came up with, shooting all their tarps from different angles. And then I said, well, how about we do something where, as you see here, even with inside the bowl, our boards and stuff like that, we had to push those out. But then how do we do it with players in the background? So we had to really, from a field level or from in our ozone layer in the stands, shoot part of the game with the brandings in the back. And that's how we were able to, provide our partners, outside partners, with their brandings, and with, like, instead of like with the fans, we got the players on the field. So as you see here, as I go back and forth, with the Gatorade in the background here from the field level. So basically I'm trying to shoot the game from the field, but also looking at branding at the same time and do multiple things at the same time. But you have to stay on it. You have to keep thinking. You have to really be in tune with what you're doing, as when you're moving around the field. We do a lot of line shots on special teams. I looked and said, oh, look at SAP is right there. That'd be a good photo and image that we could push out to our SAP partner as well. Now, from the stands and what we call our ozone layer, the same thing. From our photographers that are up there, they had to like sometimes shoot tighter, they had to shoot loose, to get the branding there as well. And then from different angles, right? Just to show, and then this still gives, from, like, say, a still standpoint, something to the partners. Then when you look at, we had to relocate to Arizona, and the same thing, we had to brand that stadium like if it was our home stadium. I'll get a little bit more into that on our relocation as well. But pushing that out also was key to us. And so, and for our social and web teams as well. Oops, I clicked something there. Let me get back to here. Yeah. And then our boards was the same way. I had to during the game, capture everything for all our partners coming on the board, and then go back to shooting the game. So there was a lot of movement with different lenses, different cameras, different focal lengths, just to get the job done for everybody. Levi is one of our main partners with the stadium. So we had to move their branding in when we got players, coming in for game day. Had to capture that, push that out in real time via FTP to PhotoShelter, and then show their branding as well. And you see, presented by Levi's. So there was a lot of things going on, in getting that done and getting the coverage. So as you can see here, shooting from the stands, this is like, that morning of the games, but shooting from the stands, getting that coverage done as well, shooting from field level. But then again, this image here shows, if I had 4 photographers in the stands and 1 on the field, or 1 photographer in the stands, we had to break the field up basically to get different angles. So if I was on the right side of the field, I had to make sure a photographer, if they were in the stand, was on the left side. And this image kind of depicts and shows that, after a touchdown, my photographer that's sitting in the stands over here, getting an image from a different angle, and we're getting it from a different perspective on the field. So that's how I was breaking up the field. And if you look here, there was an interception by one of our players, and we were getting a celebration shot, and they were getting ready to point, and they ran down to the other end zone. And if you look right down here in the corner, you see that lens that is laying down on the ground. I dropped the lens, ran over to get the celebration one, but we were able to get it from multiple perspectives. And that's basically the image that the final image that I captured during that time. So then let's talk about the relocation. I showed you a couple of images from how we had to brand the stadium and so on and so forth. And in our area here in Santa Clara, they were gonna shut the county down from outside sports, and so we had to pivot. We were going to LA to play the Rams on a weekend, and we found that out, and we were able to really, and I have to give props to our logistics team and our football ops team, it's like we played the Rams on a Sunday and we were in Arizona on a Tuesday, ready to go in less than almost 2.5, 3 days. And this is what they put together at the hotel where we're staying at the conference center. They had to build a weight room. We had to separate everything, 6 feet apart, sanitize everything. But this was actually, and I was so impressed by it, where when we walked in and the meal room is prepped, everything's going, and they got golf carts ready, and this is how we were going to transfer players to the practice field that you saw in the previous image, and getting players back and forth on the golf carts just to practice to finish our season. And basically, we moved to Arizona for 32 days and to finish out, without really missing a beat. And these are some of the images that, the first day of practice, once we hit Arizona one Sunday after a game, and then this is practice on a Wednesday, and we still, like I say, even though we're remotely, even though we're not home, I still had to provide pool photography for local media, for media back in the Bay Area where we're at, so they can at least get images to for their newspaper and outlets and stuff like that. So it was very interesting because the practice field, they had to build the practice field out in front of State Farm Stadium, because you got to remember the Cardinals were still playing as well, so we still had to share the stadium with them. So it was like and it worked out pretty well for both teams. And then when I was talking about partnerships and branding, I mean, it doesn't stop. I mean, I would get requests, say, hey, we need to get Gatorade, some bottles, guys drinking, so on and so forth, and outside of practice, when we're shooting practice, you have to look for certain things that are going on as well. So your head is almost on a swivel. And that's what I say, pivoting as a crew of photographers and managing it all. I mean, I felt that we actually did a pretty good job. So that kind of sums it up. I mean, like I say, I can go, I don't know if I went over my 10 minutes or pretty close from the time there, but
you can hit your conclusion if you want.
What's that?
You can hit your conclusion if you want.
Yeah. And so, well, that's the last slide. So we're good right there. So hopefully we have a bunch of questions on how we were able to do that, and then going from there.
Well, that was fantastic. And I thank you for the early wake-up call on the West Coast. Yeah, I'm a lifelong Giants fan, but the 49ers have been my #2 team since I was a kid. Something about that SF and my first and last name, and plus, the 80s, 90s, there was nothing more fun than watching them play. This was terrific. I have to say,
it's interesting, though. It's interesting because I was a fan of the stands and shooting from the stands when I picked up photography. My first career, it's like, people say I'm always the most interesting guy. It's like I was my first career. I wanted to become a professional bowler, and I did at 21 years old, and I went on the Pro Bowlers Tour, in the early 80s. And I did that for a while, and then, but always had a love for the 49ers. And, back in the day, I had an opportunity to get on the field, and here I am today, 25 years later, and kind of managing and running all of the assets. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, there's some Slack chatter about getting you back on for another one-on-one session, because everybody wants to hear more of your stories. I think you also hit on something that I love.
Yeah.
The photo of the photographer taking the photo, and then the photo captured. It is.
Well, that was me taking the photo.
Yeah, no, I know. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
There's a series there that needs to be developed. So now I'm going to bring up Rankin. Hopefully, Rankin White, if you're there. Total transition here to a brand new sports franchise. I grew up a lifelong soccer player and love to see the game growing. And I know Rankin's got some really, really cool stories to tell about the start of the season and what he's been capturing. So I'm going to turn it over to Rankin, and if we have some time, I'll bring everybody back up for some questions.
Awesome, thank you, Scott. My story is a little bit different than what Tyrell was talking about. Unlike Tyrell, we haven't had a whole season. We've actually only had one home game. And unlike Tyrell, Austin FC doesn't have a full team of photographers. In fact, it's just me right now as far as in-house, photography on a day-to-day basis. So instead of talking about a full season and how we had to transition for COVID, we started in COVID and have had to work through that to get to where we're at right now. So I'm going to talk about, we had our first home game on Saturday, and I got to cover that with a team of contract photographers that we brought in just for that specific game. But I'm going to talk through kind of what my game day responsibilities were and how we use PhotoShelter to collaborate with our graphic designers who are editing photos in game, and then also our social media managers who are taking those photos and posting those to like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those platforms that they use. But yeah, so Saturday we had our inaugural home match against the San Jose Earthquakes. You can see it there on the jersey. Huge deal for Austin FC. It's a team. It's the first pro team in Austin, which is kind of crazy because Austin's right over 1 million people right now, and that's bigger than a lot of cities that have pro teams in the country. But huge day for us, huge day for the city, huge day for the team. We've been building towards this for a couple years now. But yeah, so my game day responsibilities on Saturday look a little bit different than normal game day because it's our first game. So usually I'll get there like a few hours before the game starts to get some kind of scene setting and stage setting shot. But on Saturday, our game started at 8 and I was there at the stadium at 3. So I was there for 5 hours before the game started, getting shots like these in the locker room, showing the special jerseys. You've got the Juneteenth numbers as well because Saturday was Juneteenth, and getting these types of shots to show kind of the calm before the storm, kind of set the stage for a historic day and a historic match for Austin FC. So I got to go into the locker room and take these shots before, and after I take these shots, I ran out to our media room where I'm set up, and I edit those photos on my own, and I upload those to PhotoShelter for our social media manager to post to Instagram and to Twitter. And then after that, I run back out to the stadium, and this is so I've gotten there. We've walked through kind of what our game day responsibilities are going to be with other photographers that we have there, what I need to do at each hour to kind of capture the photos that we need to capture to not only document the game, but also to have photos to post to social media. So I run back out into the stadium, and this is about 5 o'clock. Kickoff's at 8. They've just opened the gates, so you can see kind of down here at the bottom left, there's a couple fans sneaking in, but this is to kind of set the stage for the game. You can see a couple fans there on your left, but it was cool to kind of run around and take some photos with almost nobody in the stadium to start, and to kind of get this, like I said earlier, like calm before the storm, because genuinely it was a bit of a storm with the fans there. They were crazy that evening. So I take these photos and I run back down into the media room again, and I edit those myself real quick. It take like 5 or 6 of them out and edit those and put them up onto our PhotoShelter box that we have made for that game. And our social media managers get to pull from that. And then I run back out at about 6 o'clock to capture arrival of our players. And as you can see, this is just 2 of many shots that I had to get of all, I think it's 25 of our guys. They are swagged out for the game, and they all clean up really nicely. It was pretty fun to see after getting to see them sweat and in their uniform at practice for months now. It was cool to see them looking pretty suave. But I run back in and I edit those photos and I upload those to PhotoShelter as well. And so then after I take those arrival photos, that's it for me on editing photos on my own and uploading those to PhotoShelter, because one of the biggest issues we've had in Q2 Stadium we had a women's match last Wednesday, and then US women's match, and then we had the game Saturday, is our Wi-Fi almost doesn't work in the stadium right now unless you're up in the press box, which is on the 4th level. So I'm down on the field, and we need to get photos up to our social media managers live in game as fast as we can. And the cool thing is we have some FTP like hard wires like on each end of the stadium that allow me to transfer photos that I've tagged from my camera up to our social media managers in game, like as they're happening, which allowed us to get photos out very quickly without having to worry about the Wi-Fi issue that we have in our stadium. Our graphic designers take those photos and they edit them, and then they hand them off to the social media managers who then post them. But it was cool. It was awesome. I've never actually experienced that. I've shot some for Texas football, but even there, we didn't do that. We would just run cards. And here it was cool to like just tag a photo and it gets sent automatically up. And it allowed us to get photos out quickly in game. So you can see here's some pregame shots. This is me kind of setting the stage. This is, you know, some of our players kind of getting loose and getting ready. And I try to take some wider shots to kind of show the atmosphere starting to build here. Our fans were electric the whole game. And this is before the game, and they're already singing and waving flags and everything. And they've got multiple like already supporters groups that are just absolutely wild. And it's crazy to see this early on in our team's history. But so after pregame, I walk in and I run into the locker room where they're getting changed. And I get to take some of these shots that this one's really grainy for some reason, but some, in my opinion, some, you know, historic shots because it's our first game. These are our two captains right here, getting ready to deliver a final speech to the team before they come out. And you see Alex Ring, our captain here, talking one last time to the team as they're about to walk out. So I run out and I get to, you know, take these shots of them lining up and running out onto the field. And at this point for me, I was shaking. I was extremely nervous. I was extremely emotional because it's been a long time coming. And I have a massive smile on my face as I'm like standing here on the right, taking this photo of Alex walking out into Q2 Stadium. And as they walk out, the crowd just erupts and just absolutely goes crazy. And for 20,000 people in the stadium, it sounds like it's close to like 80,000. The way that they, the noise that they were making, it was absolutely insane. And so I take these photos. We've got, you know, they line up for the national anthem. They take the team photo, and so I've tagged these photos real quick, and I run over to our hardwire on the north end, and I plug in real quick and upload those, and then sit down, or these as well. And then I sit down and take a couple shots, just scene setting, like this one of the tifo that we raised at the south end that they made to kind of symbolize Austin. And then I take a few more scene setting shots, and then we have kickoff. And my job during kickoff or during the actual game is to capture the action, right? To capture these types of shots where it's, you know, showing supporters, showing the player, showing just the player on the ball, or showing some kind of beauty shots of a player from behind or of their face specifically. I love these types of shots, showing the South End fans. They were just absolutely insane, reacting to missed calls, reacting to good plays from our fans. But specifically for social media, they're looking for photos like these, where it's a player on the ball, running with the ball, shooting the ball, specifically just that player. Sometimes a little bit of action around them, but that's what they really like to see. So I take those specifically and tag those. But then I like these sort of, again, scene setting shots. You kind of get to see the atmosphere and what's actually going on, like this one as well. This is easily, I think, my favorite shot from the day. And then we get to halftime. And so I run over and I plug in again, hardwire, and I'm like throwing photos up. And then, yeah, like, come back out, take more photos. We've got more fans going crazy. Just some awesome action in the second half that I got to capture. Unfortunately, we didn't get to score any goals, but yeah, it was an absolutely incredible match, an incredible atmosphere. Something I'm extremely proud of being able to capture and to document. And PhotoShelter, the way that I was able to get photos up quickly throughout the game was like one of the biggest reasons that we pulled it off, and pulled it off really well.